Hello everyone, it's Theo from Theo Spanish Fast Learning, and here we are for the first official video in the channel. Since the presentation video is over, we are starting the channel with this first video in Spanish about the pronunciation in Spanish. We'll be focusing on el alfabeto español, the Spanish alphabet, in order to understand how letters are pronounced in Spanish, in which context are pronounced, which way. So let's start the video right now with this sentence, which is on the screen right now. In Spanish, if you can pronounce a word, you can write it, because there's only one way to do it. It's quite simple, it's easy. Not most of the languages work like that, so that's really a chance. We should use this chance as an advantage. So by learning the pronunciation system, you can make huge progress at learning Spanish. So let's do so. Let's focus on the alphabet in Spanish. Let's see how it works, starting letter by letter and following the alphabet in chronological order. Let's start with letter A in Spanish. Its name is la A, and it's pronounced A. Quite easy, like in the word casa, which is feminine and means house. What about the letter B? Its name is la B, and it's pronounced B, like in the word bébé, which is masculine and means baby. Let's focus on the letter C, which is a little bit more complicated in Spanish, because it has several pronunciations depending on the context. The name of the letter C in Spanish is la C, and it can be pronounced either que, th, or ch, depending on the context. Let's focus on the context we can have with the letter C. When the letter C is followed by A, or O, or U, or a consonant, it has to be pronounced que. When it's followed by an E or an I, it has to be pronounced th, like the English TH. And in the case of C being followed by an H, we have to pronounce it ch. Let's have a look at some examples in order to understand better. The first line corresponds to this first line in the situation. So we have words with C followed by O or U. So the first example is pronounced corazón. It's masculine and it means heart. And the second one is cubrir. It's a verb that means to cover. The second line example follows the second line situation. So the first word is cero, and it means zero. And the second one is ciudadano or ciudadana. That can be masculine or feminine in Spanish, and it means citizen. The last line follows the last situation line. It's about CH in Spanish, which work like in English. It means to pronounce ch, like in the word choque, which is masculine and means shock as a noun. What about the letter D? The letter D in Spanish is called la D, and its pronunciation is d, like in the word decir, which means to say or to tell. The letter E in Spanish is called la E, and it's pronounced E, like in the word elefanto, which is masculine and means elephant. What about the letter F? The letter F is called la F, and its pronunciation is F, like in the word familia, which is feminine and means family. The letter G is a little bit more complex. It's quite the most difficult letter in the Spanish alphabet, according to me, because there are 4 different contexts in its use. The letter G is called la G, and it can be either pronounced g, h, or gue, depending on the context. Let's focus on this particular context. When the letter G is followed by A, or O, or U, or a consonant, it has to be pronounced g. When it's followed by E or I, it's pronounced ch. When it's followed by UE or UI, it's pronounced g, with the U muted. It's the same context as the first line, but we have a U between the E and the I. It's important to notice. And the last context, when it's followed by U with 2 point above, and E or U 2 point above, and I. It has to be pronounced gue. Let's focus on some example in order to understand a little bit better how it works. So yeah, each lines in examples correspond to each line in situation. If you want to make links between those two, because it will be difficult to put it on the 2 pages. So yeah, the first line is about G followed by A, O, U, or a consonant. So we have 2 words for that in my examples. The first one is garaje. It's masculine and means garage. And the second one is gusto. It's masculine and means taste. The second line follows the example of G followed by E or I. The first word is género. It's masculine and means gender. And the second one is girar, which is a verb. It means to turn. In the third line, we have example of UE and UI. The first word is guerra. It's feminine and means war. And the second one is guitarra. It's feminine and means guitar. And the last line followed the example of U with 2 point above E or U with 2 point above I, which is a phenomenon called in Spanish diéresis. The first one is pronounced vergüenza. It's feminine and means shame. And the second one is pingüino. It's masculine and means penguin. Let's move on to the letter H, which is called in Spanish la H. La H. The pronunciation of the H can either be muted or ch if it's in the CH phoneme. The situations are quite easy to understand. If the H is alone, I mean not with the C before, it has to be muted. And if it's the CH together, it has to be pronounced ch. Here are 2 examples. The first one is hablar, it means to speak. And the second one is chocolate, it's masculine and means chocolate. What about the letter I in Spanish? The letter I is called la I, and its pronunciation is I. It's quite easy. Like in the word inclinación, which is feminine and means inclination. The letter J in Spanish is called la J, and its pronunciation is J, like in the name Juan, which is the equivalent of the name John. What about the letter K? The letter K is called la K, and its pronunciation is K, like in the word kiwi, which is masculine means kiwi. An extra information about the letter K is that it's very rare. It's very rarely used in Spanish. There's only a few examples, like kiwi or kilo, like the units, but it's not a lot used in Spanish. What about the letter L? There is a little twist about the letter L. I decided to put the little L and the double L together in order to explain you the difference between those two, because it's quite difficult if you are not aware of. So the letter L in Spanish is called la L, and the double L is called la L doble, and the pronunciation can be L, like for the letter L alone, and it can either be lieu or ye for the double L. We'll see that in a second. So yeah, the situations, if L is alone, it has to be pronounced L, but if it's a double L, there are 2 different cases. If the double L is at the beginning of a word, you have to pronounce it lieu, and if it's anywhere else in the word, you have to pronounce it ye. Let's focus on examples in order to understand a little bit better how it works. So if it's alone, you have, for example, lavar, which means to watch. But if you have the double L, you have to be careful of if it's at the beginning or anywhere else in the word, like in llamarse, which means to be called, or llover, which means to rain as a verb. In those 2 cases, the double L is at the beginning, so you have to pronounce lieu. But in the example in the line just after, it's the word estrella, which is feminine and means star, and the double L is not at the beginning, so you have to pronounce it ye. The letter M in Spanish is called la M, and it's pronounced me, like in the word madre, which is feminine and means mother. The letter N in Spanish is called la N, and it's pronounced N, like in the word nada, which means nothing. This letter is Spanish alphabet exclusive, and it's called la ñ, and it's pronounced ñ, like in the word montaña, which is feminine and means mountain. What about the letter O? Well, it's quite easy also. Its name in Spanish is la O, and it's pronounced O, like in the word hueso, which is masculine and means bone. The letter P is also quite easy. It's named la P, and it's pronounced P, like in the word padre, which is masculine and means father. The letter Q is quite easy, but there's a lot of situation and equivalence to focus about, so yeah, let's explain a little bit. The letter Q in Spanish is called la Q, and its pronunciation has to be K, but the letter Q has to be followed by the letter U, there's no other way. And also, the letter QU has to be followed by E or I, so yeah, it's quite specific. You won't find the letter Q in every word in Spanish. Yeah, it's quite situational, shall I say. So yeah, and it has an equivalent because the letter Q, U with E and I is supposed to be pronounced K. It is the equivalent of the letter C, but when the letter C is in front of A, O, U or a consonant, as we saw before, you can refer to the letter C when I explained about it. But this time it's QU, so it's in front of E or I. So yeah, let's see two examples. We have, for example, querer, which means to want or to love, depending on the context. Be careful of that. And we have also, for example, the word quien or quienes, which means who. Yeah, in Spanish, there is a plural way to say who. Yeah, it's quite weird, but yeah, you'll get used to that, I guess. Here is the letter R, and yeah, we also have two different cases. The letter R is called la R, and it can be pronounced R or R if it's doubled. And we'll see that we also have a little situation that is tricky about simple R. Let's focus on those situations. If the R is alone, it's pronounced R, but if it's the double R or a simple R at the beginning of a word, it's pronounced R, like a double R. For example, we have pero, which is but. We have perro or perra, which is masculine or feminine and means dog. And we have riesgo, which is masculine and means risk. And in this last case word, you have to pronounce riesgo as if it was a double R, because it's at the beginning of the word. The letter S in Spanish is called la S, and its pronunciation is S, like in the word salsa, which is feminine and means sauce. The letter T in Spanish is called la T, and it's pronounced T, like in the word experto or experta, which is masculine or feminine and means expert. The letter U in Spanish is called la U, and it's pronounced U, like in the word unión, which is feminine and means union. The letter V in Spanish is called la UB, and it's pronounced B, like the B in Spanish. Be careful of that, no V sound in Spanish, like in the word viernes, which means Friday. The letter W in Spanish is called la W, and its pronunciation is W, like in the word kiwi, which is masculine and means kiwi, or the city Washington. And as we saw with the letter K, the letter W also have really few examples of words that use it. We have kiwi or other anglicisms, but not many words use the letter W. You won't find it anywhere. So yeah, it's quite rare. The letter X in Spanish is called la X, and it's pronounced X, like in the word climax, which is masculine and means climax. What about the letter Y? The letter Y in Spanish is called la Y, and it's pronounced Y or I in the case of the Y alone as a word. So yeah, both situations are the following ones. followed by any vowel, A, E, I, O, or U. It's pronounced Y. It can't be followed by a consonant. And if it's alone, if it's E as a word, if it's Y as the word, it's pronounced E. So here are the examples. Yo, which means I or me. Tuyo or tuya, which is masculine and feminine and means yours as a noun or a pronoun. And we have, for example, él y ella, which means him and her. So here, in this case, it's y alone as a word, which means and in Spanish, if you don't know. And the last but not the least, the letter Z in Spanish is called la theta, and its pronunciation is th in every cases. But let's focus on the situation in which the letter Z can appear in Spanish. There's not many of them. So yeah, in Spanish, the letter Z has to be followed by A, O, U, or nothing, meaning that it's at the end of the word. So yeah, there's not many cases of occurrences for the letter Z in Spanish. But as we saw before, we also have equivalents for the letter Z in Spanish. It's the same letter as the letter C in front of E or I. So, but this time it's in front of A, O, U, or at the end of the word. Let's focus on examples. We have, for example, zapato, which is masculine and means shoe, or brazo, which is masculine and means arm. And we also have example at the end of the word like pez, which is masculine and means fish as an animal, because yeah, here is a little tips. In Spanish, there's two different ways to say fish. Fish as an animal is pez, and fish as a dish is pescado, and it's also masculine. Be careful when you use fish in a sentence, not to mix those two things up. Here we are for the alphabet, but what about the link between letters? We already saw a little bit about it, but let's explain more precisely how it works. So we have links between different letters in Spanish, like for example C and Z are linked because we saw that, for example, when you conjugate the verb vencer in present, third person, you will obtain vence. But if you want to turn that into subjunctive mode, you will have to change the E into an A. And if you keep the C in front of the A, you will obtain venca, which is not possible in Spanish. Obviously, we have to keep the sound, so you have to change the C into a Z. We also have to do it backwards when it's the Z at the end of the word, at the end of a noun, and you have to turn it into plural. As you may know, in Spanish, when a word is ending with a consonant, you have to put an E between the consonant and the S of the plural mode. But when it's ending with Z, as you may have learned with the Z occurrences, Z can't be followed by an E in Spanish, so you have to turn the Z into a C in order to obtain the plural, like with cruz and cruces. We also have those kind of phenomenon with C and QU. With the verb marcar, when you conjugate it to third person indicative mode present, you obtain marca. But if you want to turn that into subjunctive mode, you will have to change C into QU in order to keep the sound K in front of E to obtain marqué. What about G and J? It might be a little bit less known, but G and J also have a link. For example, if you have G in front of E or I at infinitive, when you conjugate it and it's in front of O, U, or A, you will have to turn the G into a J in order to keep the H sound. In this case, coger becomes cojo, from infinitive to first person indicative present. What about G and GU? We saw it a little bit before, but let's focus on the changes it can mean. So we have, for example, the verb negar, conjugated in third person singular indicative mode present, which gives nega. And in this case, if you want to turn it into subjunctive mode, you will have to put a U after the G, the G in order to keep the G sound. Because if you don't do that, you will obtain neige and not negue. And we want negue in order to keep the G sound. Yeah, but what is going on when you have GU plus A, O, or U? Because in Spanish, if you do have such letters together, you obtain gua, guo, or gu, like in the verb averiguar, conjugated to third person indicative not present, you will obtain averigua. But if you turn that into subjunctive mode and you forgot to put 2 points above the U, you will obtain averigue. And we don't want averigue, we want averigue. So we need 2 points above the U, and its phenomenon is called geresis, as we saw it when we were learning the pronunciation of the letter G in its context. So yeah, in this case, you obtain averigue from averigua. So yeah, those are the link between letter and situation. In order to conclude this video, I just want to add a little tip about the double consonants in Spanish. So in Spanish, not many letters can be doubled, and in terms of consonant, only 4 of them can be doubled, and it's C, R, L, and N. And in order to remember that, you can remember the name Carolina, which is quite easy then to remember. Here are some examples of their uses in just one word for each letter. We have the word acción, which is feminine and means action, the word ferrocarril, which is masculine and means railway. In this word, we have 2 occurrences of double R, maravilloso or maravillosa, which is either masculine or feminine and means wonderful, and connotación, which is feminine and means connotation. Don't forget to pronounce both N's in Spanish, connotación. Be careful with the pronunciation. So yeah, no other consonants in Spanish can be doubled, so no double B, D, F, G, H, J, K, M, P, Q, S, T, V, W, X, nor Z. So yeah, it's quite easy. If you have one of the letters down below and you are asking yourself if you can double it when you write you're writing in Spanish, no, you can't. If you have one of them above, you have to learn, but I mean only 4 consonants. It's quite easy to remember, I guess. So this is the end of the video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed this little video about Spanish pronunciation, the alphabet. If it's the case, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share this video with your friends. And we'll see each other in the next video. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Take care, guys.